Cause like when you're transitioning, it's you're always transitioning. Like it's always there's always something.
Ladies and gentlemen, so we have a very special conversation with a very special guest. Conversation I've been looking forward to doing for quite a while. So, I have to find the perfect guest, someone who's open and ready to have a conversation. Because I'll pull it out of people. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
To the listeners, what's up, y'all? I'm Sahara. I am currently in the state of Ohio. BA born and raised. So I'm a little country at heart.
Well, that's fair enough. I want. It's funny because we wound up like moving to Ohio. Like, what was like a month apart from each other? It wasn't that far apart. That's weird.
No, because I've been up here for 2 years this month. So I moved up here July 2017.
See, and I moved May 2017. So yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, because we met when I was still in Virginia.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
crazy how that works, right?
Right? Because if my memory is correct, I think I was in Ohio in May for my sister's birthday. And somehow, I don't remember how we just crossed paths somehow.
Yeah, it's funny how that stuff works. I'm
Yeah.
always around, always around. But Sahara, so this is a special conversation. I think this is one that is going to hopefully break down a lot of walls and a lot of people's thinking and misconceptions. Um, so first, before we get into that, I have an icebreaker for every first time guest. And since this is your first time on the podcast, it's easy. It's nothing too hard, but I didn't want you to prepare for it because I want kind of your raw reaction. So the icebreaker is if you had to pick three songs that represented like overall where you feel like you are in life right now, the kind of the soundtrack of your life. Three songs, what would it be? It could be old, new, whatever.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay. Three songs for my life right now. Um, crap, why would you do that? Three songs for my life at this moment.
What's your favorite song right now? What's
About to
something
say,
that stays on your playlist?
making my scalp itch. Favorite song right now. I listen to the same songs over and over, literally. If I had to pick three, I guess number one would probably be we can go with Rihanna Work. We can
Okay.
we, we can go with Rihanna Work.
You do work a lot, so that makes sense.
Work a lot. A whole heck of a lot. Let's go with is it Summertime Magic, Childish Gambino?
Okay. All right, I feel that one.
That's it's a little vibe, it's a little jam. Um, the third one though, what's the third one? Okay, so I guess if I'm in a mood, like if I'm stressing myself out too much, it's legit her. I'm not okay.
Ooh. Okay, that's a great one. I keep that
Mm,
that there you go. I feel that one. I
mm.
feel that one. That's
I
a
think I was like, what do I vibe to in my mood? So
fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So now that we got through that icebreaker, it's time to get into it. So the first question that I have for you before we get into anything else,
mhm.
who is Sahara?
Who is Sahara? So Sahara is a trans woman of color who has it's been shoot, how long has it been? It'll be 7 years in October.
Wow.
7 years.
Wow. That's I
That's
bet you have a lot. Yeah, that is 7 years. That's so we'll talk about it. Like what
I got some stories.
yeah, I mean let's get into it. So like first, um when you made the decision to transition, like walk us through kind of your mindset, how you like because there's a lot of like misconceptions, and I think also it's part of what I want to talk about here is how The transition isn't based just off sex. A lot of people have the misconception that it's just about sexual, and it's not necessarily that. So I want to kind
Right.
of dig in your mind and break down what your personal story in that process.
Right, right. So for me personally, like it wasn't always a thing, because like in high school, they'd be like, for some reason in high school, I guess when you're very feminine, they're just like, oh, such and such is going to come to our class reunion as a woman. Like, what? That's not, no, of course not. That's not it. But class reunion is probably like next year or so. Um, so basically, like once, like I would go out with friends and stuff, and just naturally, like I just kind of like shifted. Like I would dress up to go out, or my wardrobe would start to consist of more women's clothing than anything else. So I haven't always been like masculine. I was never super masculine. I didn't really
Hmm.
like sports, even though that's not really a characteristic of being trans. I just gravitated more towards the stereotypical girly stuff.
Okay.
So like it just kind of happened, and I messaged one of the girls from back home who had already transitioned, and she looked like she just gave me who she talked to, where she went, what she did, blah blah blah, and it just like started from there, October 2012, and now we're here. Like it just happened naturally. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do it for this reason or I'm gonna do it for that reason. It just was like, this is what's happening. This is what's shifting, and it's like a permanent thing.
Did having your friend who kind of already went through the process, did that having that support there and that person you can go to for knowledge really help your trans? Do you think that made it easier?
It did, because I
Okay.
was so lost. Like it's a lot. Like a lot of people think you can just wake up one morning and be like, "Oh, I'm trans." But I mean, you can, but to actually physically transition is a lot. Like you have to see a psychologist. You have to have letters of recommendations and all that other stuff for like just to even start hormones. So it's like it's a lot of hoops to jump through.
And see,
It,
that's something that like I didn't know. Like until you just said that, I didn't know that was like a requirement before you transition. So what was that process like? What was it like going to see a psychologist and talking through it before you actually got to start it?
so luckily, okay, so the more difficult process, they want you, some places require you talk to a psychologist for like a year,
Okay.
sometimes longer, and they leave it up to their discretion of when to write you your referral. I luckily found someone who was like 45 minutes away, and all it took was one one 1 hour session, and he was like, here's your referral.
Okay.
So he didn't. His name was Andy Metzner. I had seen him before on National Geographic. He was actually on one of the episodes about being transgender there. Um, so his whole thing is he doesn't want you to jump through hoops. Like if he feels like you're ready mentally, then he writes you your referral right then and there.
Okay. The was it more straining on you and I'm struggling how I want to word this. Was it more straining on you mentally than physically, like through the actual transition process?
Yes,
Yes.
it's a lot.
Okay.
It's mentally just because you're dealing with once you start taking your hormones, it legit like rewires everything, like your chemical balance, your hormone balance. Like it's dropping testosterone, up in your estrogen, and sometimes it gets off. Like how um, a cisgender woman gets moody or emotional, like when she's pregnant or when she's like menstruating because her hormones are off balance. It's
Hmm.
the same thing for us.
Okay.
So like mentally, we're it's a lot of mood swings. a lot of mood swings. Like it's what's the word? Hot flashes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
mentally you're dealing with what you're going through, the outside world, like your surroundings, and it's a lot mentally unless once you get past it. Like once you get past that hurdle and you're like, okay, I can deal with this, it's a walk in the park.
Okay. What so like you saying like going through mood swings and hot flashes kind of transitions to what I want to say, what I want to talk about next, like your family. Like I'm sure that your mood swings and stuff affected the people around you as much as it did you. So like what do you, how do you like see view like how that process was for them? Were they supportive? Was it shocking to them at first? Like how was your interaction and your family's response to you wanting to transition?
It was. I think they didn't see it coming. I
Okay.
did it to myself for a very long time. Um, I mean, there were a few hiccups here and there, like as far as just them adjusting, like getting used to. Um, like I changed my name. It was a few hiccups getting used to it,
Mhm.
using the right pronouns, so it was definitely an adjustment. Like they handle my mood swings well though. Like even now, they're just like, "Did you take your hormones today? Like, have you been taking your I don't like your attitude." And I'm just like, "Okay." So like now, but in the beginning it was, hiccups and the little bumps in the road and stuff, but now everything's like it just comes automatically. Like that's my daughter, that's my sister, that's my niece, that's my granddaughter, you know. It's normal.
And that I guess well that has to make you feel like good and closer to you. Did that do you feel like that brought you guys closer to go through that process together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like if they were not as open and supportive, it would have been a lot harder because like pre-transition family is like super close. So if it was a complete opposite after starting, I feel like it would have took a more of an emotional toll on myself because we're super close.
That's good. And that is a vibe that I get like just from like following you and everything that you and your family they're super protective over you, aren't they? Yeah.
I even now, like I'm 27, and even if I like go out somewhere that they're like cut your location on, and I'm like, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. And we'll some of that stuff too, and I can understand some of the reasons for that. But to kind of get back on like the transition process, kind of add understanding for people who don't have it. Like what misconceptions do you think like the general public has about the transition process?
I don't even know where to start with that. So much, like I said, like a lot of people feel like you just like wake up, throw on a wig and some women's clothes, and be like, oh look, I'm transgender and I want to be
Mm,
treated this way, and it's really more to it than that. Like as far as where do I even start? Okay, let's say cisgender women who are on the offensive about trans women. They feel like we want to replace them.
okay.
They feel like we are somehow taking their spot or taking their men, So, and I'm just like, dude, I come from a black woman. There are black women in my family. Like, why would I can't replace who or what has given me life. Like
Mm,
we as trans women know we cannot bear children. And we need cisgender women to actually carry children. And so it's like there's a big misconception. Like a lot of women I've heard, they say, oh, you want what I got, or you want to be this, or you. And I'm just like, honestly, I don't. I
yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
You can have it. Like you can keep the cycle. You can keep the childbearing. Like it's we offer two different life experiences.
Mm,
So if a if you feel threatened because a man that you're interested in is also interested in trans women, that's a personal thing, you know.
Hmm.
It doesn't make them any less of a person.
What? How do you
It,
feel about that? Like men who are judged for being into trans women and cisgendered women, like because that's like the other end of the spectrum that isn't really it affects you, I guess, in a sense, but it's more so judging the man who's interested in trans women. What do you think about that?
it's bad. It's all
Yeah.
bad. Like people like what they like. Like I said, we offer two different life experiences. So if a man is interested in cis women and trans women, it doesn't make him any less of a man, you know,
Hmm.
because he sees what he likes, he hears what he likes. It's everything that he likes, just different walk of life, you know?
Yeah.
So I personally don't like it. I don't. So and it bothers me. It does.
Have you ever had this? Have you ever defended, like, kind of have defended somebody you seen being judged in a situation like that?
Yes. Before I kind of like protected my peace and my mental
Hmm.
space. Like, you know, stuff gets you scroll through social media, you like see stuff all the time, and it's like it's cis men and women, like they both are like, oh, if he likes men, he's gay, he's a fag, he's this, he's that. And it's like, I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm like, gay. Gay is two men. Literally, gay is a man that looks like you, liking a man of the same, you know, the same look, same stature. And I'm just like, I just can't. It irritates me. So now I just scroll past those conversations because it's
Hmm.
pointless. It falls on deaf ears. And it's like people change the definition of homosexual every day.
Oh yeah, to fit their bias at that time.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
it's becoming.
Yeah. And and it comes from cis men, cis women who are also like gay and lesbian. So
Wow,
there
really?
are attacks from all sides.
Okay. And so, like, what have you ever been in a situation to where, like, before someone knew that you were transgender, that they treated you one way, and then the moment they found out, it completely flipped the script
Few times in my day,
a few times in your
you know, a
day?
few times in my day, like the whole dating scene, like I've had guys like, oh, let's go out, let's do this, or we can do that, and like let's date, let's do that. And then I'm like, all right, cool, but you know, let's just get this out the way now. You know, I'm trans, blah, blah, blah. It's not cool. I get it. And, you know, some people are like, okay, like, I don't care. That's not what I asked you. I said, are we going out?
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, some people are just like, that's not my thing. We just stopped talking. And then you have people who wanted to date you and go out and do all this other stuff, turn around and they just get like hypersexual, like super sexual. They just,
Yeah.
it's gross. Like people be gross.
Yeah, and that's one of the topics we have later
Yeah.
on, the fetishizing. So we'll definitely get into that. We're not skipping that topic at all. We'll dive deep into that one.
No.
Um, but I had a question for you, and it just completely slipped my mind. What do you? How does it make you feel when someone more so judges you or looks at you as trans rather than just a person? Like and I've said this kind of in different situations before. I think as people, sometimes we get so focused on the label that we put on people that we
Hmm.
forget to just that there's a human in front of us, regardless of anything else. There's a human in front of us, and we should still have that amount of decency. But that's forgotten a lot, especially with the LBGTQ community, from cisgender people. They just throw that out the window. It's like you don't even
Hmm.
become human at that point. You become whatever title they want to try to attach to you. So what do you think about that?
It's definitely challenging. Like it because it's like on one hand cis you have cis people looking at you like what you're doing, like you're weird, you're a freak, or like some type of you made a mistake somewhere along the
Mm-hmm.
road, and that's why you are the way you are. And then on the other hand, it's like you have to choose between the LGBT and being black.
Yeah.
Again, there's attacks from all. It's like on the totem pole. It's like I honestly, personally feel like trans people are at the bottom
Okay.
because people don't see you as an actual person, and then more so, there's more. What's the word? Indifference coming from the
Okay.
black community too, because it's like they're okay, like they'll support you as long as you are heterosexual and cisgender. As soon as you are LGBT, it's like you don't have some of the black community's support, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle being trans, trying to navigate the world, and you have cisgender people coming at you, your own black community coming at you, your own LGBT community coming at you because it's just a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot,
So
literally.
how do you deal with that, like that pressure and that weight? Do you kind of retreat back from like the community itself and kind of just live your life rather than try to engage? Like what is it how do you cope with that, I guess, is the question that I'm asking.
Yeah, I basically just stay to myself. Like I used to be very vocal and very outspoken on like all things black. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I come from a black woman, so I would speak for black women's rights and issues black women face more than anything. And then it's like there was a shift mentally because I'm like these same black women, I'm not all of them, but a majority, they don't ride for the trans community. Or if it was up to me, if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't have their support. So, mentally, I kind of just like fell back from that and I just stick to myself. Like, I don't, like, I honestly have the same friends from like school and I picked up a few along the way, but I don't put myself in situations to like let people close
Mm-hmm.
just based off of that, like, whole, I don't know what you're really thinking.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
in my face one day, but at the same time, like real life scenario, be behind my back, like, oh, she's trans, or she was born a man to people in general.
Yeah.
So I don't put myself in those situations and I just mind my business.
So you kind of have to isolate yourself just to protect your peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Like to put myself first, I have to like not interact with people. It's weird. It shouldn't be that way, but it's
Yeah, that so, and you have your core group of friends, and I'm guessing because you have to kind of isolate, that deepens your relationship with them, kind of like your
yeah.
your core group. But like, so what do you, and you moved recently, like in the last couple of years. So like, when it comes time to interact with new people and like try to build new friendships and stuff, what do you do? Do you just kind of just let it come as it comes, or
Basically,
yeah,
I've been up here for 2 years and I only know the people I work with, my family, and the few people like I've dated, whatever, a little bit, and that's it. Like I haven't really made close connections with anyone just based off of that. Like I just don't have the time to go into it. And I'm just very protective with my business too.
mm-hmm,
And so I have this thing, like I feel like to be really good friends, you have to like have some sort of vulnerability. And I
okay,
can't.
you just
I
don't have it.
I just can't bring myself to be vulnerable with people like these days.
And one of the topics that we'll get, I guess we can go ahead and get into it. So the next set of topics that we have are based kind of around assault on the trans community, politics, socialism in the trans community. So you said you kind of have to protect yourself and your peace. You have to guard yourself. So just in, and I put 2019. That's I made a mistake on that. So in 2018, there were 26 trans women killed. So far in 2019, there have been 11. That's not counting assaults or anything else. Just strictly deaths.
Hmm.
So do you, of course, I'm sure hearing those numbers, like, does that make you afraid to kind of go out and just enjoy the world because of things like that? And have you ever ran into a situation, not necessarily that you were assaulted, but that you were worried about your safety, just living your normal life?
Um, yeah, it does kind of put you. It does make you kind of like be more aware of your surroundings.
Hmm.
Because those numbers really, they can try to get as close to it as they want, but a lot of trans, a lot of trans women who are killed are misgendered.
Okay.
So that's why the numbers are always off. Like like we know they're higher
Yeah, of course.
since they don't list them as trans and they list them as their, the gender they were given at birth is inaccurate. So it does kind of make you pay attention to your surroundings a little bit more. Like if I go out with friends and stuff, I know where all the exits are at. And it just comes from habit. I think I have a little bit of anxiety.
Hmm.
I go out like I'm cool, but I'm very like aware of people around me, like what I'm doing. I don't drink too much when I'm out. Just off of that, like it's real out here. And a lot of people have the misconception like, oh, she tricked him, or if you guys are honest, this wouldn't happen. And honestly, you can go walk down the street and someone be like, oh, that's a man, or she's trans, and if there was a guy looking and he's embarrassed, he's going to prove his masculinity by assaulting. He assault, and it's happened. So we necessarily don't have to do anything, or in some cases they're in a relationship and they don't want it to get out, and
Yeah.
so to protect them and their masculinity, they assault, and then they murder in worst case scenario.
Yeah. You start seeing it like on the news more and more and more, and also what you said too, like it's, that number is just killed, and like you said, they could be misgendered, but also a lot of the trans community doesn't come forward when they're assaulted or accosted at all, because just a fear of it happening again, or being labeled or whatever. They kind of keep it to
Mhm.
themselves. And so do you feel like, as a community, that, of course, I mean, I don't even know why I wrote the question. Of course we're not doing enough to protect the trans community. What do you
Right.
feel we can do to help the trans community feel more safe, and to protect people like that? That's again, like, humans, we should be protecting each other. But go ahead.
Right, right. No, I get it. Like, so like in the cases of the, murders and assaults being, reported with wrong information, I feel like the first step is, like I said, like from the beginning, the hurdles you have to go through, because some states don't even allow you to change like your sex on your license or your birth certificate until you have the bottom surgery. So
Hmm.
a lot of times it's the policies put in place. So if we as a whole were able to, get that important information changed, even if it's just a license change from, and I speak only from a male to female perspective because, that's my life. But even for female to male trans people, like that's where it all starts. It starts with the policies, it starts with the hurdles that we have to jump through, and then it just trickles down from there. So like if we can get rid of all that, I feel like it would open people's mind more to being more aware of what we go through as a whole.
Okay.
Like we're just existing. Like we're just existing along with everyone else, but we don't have those same protections. So like when people think of gay rights or LGBT rights, really we're not included because we have our own whole set of other shit to deal with.
Yeah.
And I feel like the T shouldn't even really be there because it's not an orientation, but that's a whole
No,
different thing.
no, I mean, let's get into it. No, I mean, because I mean, it's all about education here. So when you say that you don't feel like T should be included in that, because I think that's important. Not a lot of people say that or really think about that. So why do you feel that way?
Like, because how you identify, like, there are trans women who like men, there are trans women who like women, there's trans women
Hmm.
who like women, trans men, like, they're pansexual. So, like, their identity is trans, but
Orientation
their
is different.
orientation be gay,
Yeah.
straight, pansexual, whatever. And so, like I said, we're not covered in those same protections that they have. So it's a whole separate ground to cover.
Okay.
And like I said, we get resistance from everyone in that spectrum. So we just have to like try to stick it out and fight together or something. I don't know.
No, I understand that, and that basically transitions right into the next question. So, like with celebrities like Laverne Cox, being really at the forefront, I would think of speaking out about trans issues and trans rights and putting faces to everything. Um, how do you feel like more people need to step up? Do you feel like it's fear, kind of like what you talked about, that keep more people from speaking out? Like, what does putting a face to it, I guess, and someone who's so prominent, what does that mean to you as being part of that community?
It's it's definitely good as far as representation goes because you literally see yourself, you know.
Mm,
So like Laverne Cox, Janet Mock, like there's a lot of trans women who are out there, but again, it's like it's up to the media and what they're posting, to actually put it out. Like they can post all they want to on their social media, but like for major networks that reach a broader spectrum of people, they're just like, oh, it's just another black trans person.
yeah.
Because first they're black and then they're a trans woman of color. So it's like, uh, it's almost the same thing with colorism. It's colorism too. Because if you are a blonde hair, blue eyed trans woman, it's okay, it's acceptable. But if you're a trans woman of color, you don't get that widespread of as much media attention. So like it definitely it's definitely a good thing. Like I have Janet Mock's books over here actually, her memoir.
Okay.
So it's definitely a representation thing. And as far as people not stepping up, I think we're all a little guilty.
Okay.
I think we're all a little guilty because I do the same thing, and yeah, I do the same thing. And it's not because I don't want to. And I'm not living a stealth life, which by the way means existing in the world and no one knows you're trans.
Okay.
I just don't talk about it until stuff like this pops up. Like if someone's like, "Hey, let's talk about it," and I'm like, "Okay, cool," but other than that, I'm just navigating the world as what people think is a cis woman, and I kind of have like a passing privilege. Mm, I acknowledge that,
Does that ever kind of make you feel guilty?
kinda.
Kind of.
Like some of the things, like there's a slight passing privilege there, where like you go out, you don't get, people aren't like, "Oh, she's trans," a whole lot. Versus like if you have a girlfriend who just started or who has like a different structure than you do,
Hmm.
and people are like whispering or looking and pointing, it kind of makes you anxious, makes you nervous.
Hmm.
So yeah, I feel bad. I do feel bad sometimes because a lot of people just want to exist and navigate how they see themselves in their head, but in reality, physically it's not portrayed that way. So I kind of, sometimes I'm just like, I'm gonna slide out over here.
What do you think of like Pose on FX? It's really blowing up. It's kind of putting more of a face to the trans community for some people. What do you think? Do you think there needs to be more shows that paint a light on that community and that life, or do you like what do you make of that? Do you think it's kind of like, is it fantasizing it to a certain degree with not really like what do you think? I'm struggling how I want to phrase the question, but what do you think about Pose and stuff
Uh,
specifically?
Pose is a great show. Pose is a great and it is an accurate representation of navigating the world as a trans woman of color, like down to the relationships, down to the discrimination as far as finding work and having to do, sex work, just to survive. Like the whole ballroom scene, it's like 110% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone was like clueless about, that whole world, like I would just tell them, like, just watch Pose. Like, they literally cover every aspect. Like, I can relate to every aspect in that show to a T. Like, that show makes me emotional. Like, when I watched the first season, like, I was like, I should not be feeling like this, but it's literally like, it's like you're watching your life on TV, because
That's
it's
deep.
it's being represented, uh, like the same exact way that it's happened.
Do you think that like the members of the community that do turn to the sex work, is it because it's hard to find work anywhere else? Like what turns people and gets people in that part of the lifestyle?
Uh, it's one aspect is the fast money.
Okay.
I'll say that because I have people, I know people who do it. I mean, it's their life. That's how they survive. That's how they eat. So it's like the fast money. Like, they're like, I can't work 40 hours a week and wait for my money every 2 weeks. Like, I need this now. Um, so it's that. It's the discrimination because being in places where you can't change your gender and your sex on your document. So, like, if you're presenting as female but your paperwork says otherwise, then
Mm-hmm.
some places can not hire you based off of that. Um, Surgery wise, they save up money faster for surgeries like bottom surgery, breast augmentation, feminization surgery for your face. Like, there's a lot of aspects that goes into it, and it's not the same for everyone. Like, everyone has a different motive behind it.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, fair enough. We're gonna take a brief break and we're gonna come back and we're gonna get into the conversation about love. All right.
Like,
You need a break or anything? You need water or anything? You good?
no, I have all my stuff right here.
All right, cool. That's why I just wrote that in just in case. I know we're gonna be talking for a while. All right, let's get into it. Uh, all right, so then we're back, and the next kind of topic, overarching topic that we're gonna be talking about is love. So, the first question that I have for you, based on this topic, is: does the fetishizing of the trans community make it hard to find genuine love?
Yes, 110,000%. A lot of From what I have experienced, I've used many a dating apps, and there's always like the same outcome. Like I said earlier, like, guys will be okay until you tell them you're trans, and then it's like they automatically go into freak mode. They're like, well,
Hmm.
you do this, do you do that? I want this done. I've been thinking about this. I've been watching this. I've been looking at this, and I'm like, damn, you just wanted to take me out to eat. Like, what changed? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So the fetishizing really, really makes it hard because a lot of people have been exposed more to transsexual porn than
Hmm.
actual transgender people. You know, like, I've heard a lot of people like, "Oh, you're the first trans person I've ever talked to." Like, I didn't know what to expect, and that's because a lot of people have preset. They have preset conditions that, like Jerry Springer, porn, Maury.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of people see that, and then they come across someone like me, and they're like, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting that." So, like, when I flip out, they're like, "Why are you so mad? Don't y'all all?" And I'm like, "Okay, block, block."
Yeah. And that's crazy that it will go from like genuine interest into now it's just about, oh, we can knock this off the check mark. We can
Yeah,
do this, we can do that. Like,
and that's basically all it is. You're just like an experience. Like, they just want you to do some shit that they got on their bucket list.
hmm. So as you've gotten older in being trans, like have you been able to weed that out more? Was it hard to kind of weed out at first, or have you already always had your head about it to where it's like you can identify that early on?
No, in the beginning it was hard. Like, in the
Okay.
beginning, like, you feel like being trans is going to be like super hard. So you kind of just gravitate to whatever kind of attention that you're getting. So like if someone's talking to you and they're like, let's do this, let's do that, and let's say they're on the down low, they're DL, whatever, you're gonna go for it, because you just wanna feel like someone actually wants you,
Yeah.
so you don't feel alone. Um, but now 7 years later, I ain't dealing with none of that shit. Like now I'm like, no, I'm not with that. Like I've never really dealt long term with someone who wanted like that level of discretion.
Okay.
So it's over time it's gotten easier to weed it out because mentally I'm just like, I'm not dealing with that shit. Like I've been exposed to, and I try not to glorify regular relationship stuff,
Okay.
but being trans, you like, what are you talking, like, I go out with this dude, like we go out, we do this, we do that, like, like I'm not being hidden, like relationships private, but relationships are a secret,
Okay.
basically.
Okay. Okay.
Like the distinct line between privacy and secrecy.
And I privacy, like how important do you feel like it is to make a relationship work to keep certain things private? Like you said, not be a secret, but to be private.
I feel like that's a big aspect of all relationships. Like not
Okay.
even as a trans woman. Like I feel like that's with everything. Like everything's not everybody's business. So
That's a fact.
like if like let's say if the person I'm with knows I'm trans, everyone else doesn't need to know if they don't know. But like you don't need to be like, oh, here's my girlfriend, she's trans, or my trans girlfriend. Like, don't do that. We don't
Yeah.
have to do that. That's a no. Like that's weird to me for some reason. But like if they have questions or if they ask like, is she trans? That's different. Like I don't want you to lie. You can answer it how you want to answer it. But I just feel like some stuff remains private
Okay.
until you face it. Like until you face a certain situation.
Fair enough. Um, I like that's a good answer. Do you think that long term you're in a relationship, you're serious, you get married, XYZ, do you find is it easier for you to date someone who's already kind of familiar with um like trans women, or would you be against dating someone who is completely ignorant to the world and you kind of have to educate them through it as well?
Honestly, to me, it doesn't matter. I,
Okay.
okay, so interesting fact. Um, I was married before.
Okay.
I was 23, and I can't remember. I think he said he dated like one other trans woman, I think, but that was it. Like stuff like that doesn't really bother me. So like we were married. I mean, he has kids and stuff. It was just a normal thing. But after him, I've dated people where I kind of had to get someone comfortable with me. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they were comfortable to a certain point, but that whole trans experience, they had never experienced it before. So like I had to just kind of, teach them some things like don't say this, don't say that, don't do this, don't joke about this type of thing.
Okay.
So me personally, I don't have a preference.
All right, that's fair enough. Or when you've had to kind of educate people on what's okay to joke with, what's not okay, have they been really receptive to it? Was there a little pushback at first? Like, what does that look like?
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process. Like just kind of like dealing with someone new. It's just like you have to learn. You have to learn them. You have to learn the way they think, the way they move. Like it's interesting, to say the least, because like some people just don't know. They're accustomed to what they're accustomed to for so long, and then they meet someone who's out of their element, but they vibe and they connect with. So that doesn't matter to them, and they're willing to like learn. So like no,
Okay.
no horror stories there.
Okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
Oh, fair enough. I have one. Hopefully there's no horror stories here, but one of the questions I have written on here is: has there ever been a situation in which someone was really into you, but their fear of being judged for their attraction to you causes a strain in your relationship?
Yes. Yes, a few times. I have vibed with the person, connected like mentally, emotionally, and like we were to a point where it was almost as if we were together, but we weren't,
Hmm.
just because they weren't ready to take that next step. And it was, they didn't know how their family would take it. They didn't know how their friends would react. And so it's like, I kind of had to remove myself from the situation because I'm like, if you can't give me 110% when I'm giving you 110%, it's just not going to work. Like you're just letting all that bull crap get in the way of what could be great,
Yeah.
what was going great, and that was literally the only bad thing. Like he just didn't know how the people around him would take it.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like, just I guess until you're in that situation, you can never really understand what that's like for someone in
Hmm.
those shoes. But like when you, because you were married before, so like when you met their family and everything, was there like at what point is it they're just meeting you, and then is there a separate conversation later where it's like, oh, by the way, she's a trans woman? Like what is that like?
So he told his mom, like he
Oh,
told, like after we had, after we had been chatting for a little while, he told his mom because they're like super close. So he told his mom. His mom's just like, if you're happy, she's good for you. I don't care. Everyone else didn't know. They did
okay.
not know. So like I met his dad, his stepmom, aunts, cousins, and to this day, I think they don't know.
Oh, wow. So I guess that's part of that passing privilege you mentioned earlier too.
Yeah, yeah. And seeing where I am now versus where I was, like, let's see, I'll be 28 this year. So seeing where I was at like 23, 24, me personally, because I look at myself all the time, I'm just like, how the hell did they not get it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like when you're transitioning, it's you're always transitioning. Like it's always there's always something. So like looking back, I'm just like, damn, like they still don't know. Okay.
And
That's
I,
really-
and you mentioned something that I kind of want to mention. You said like transitioning it's a lifelong process. Is that what you just said? There's
ba-
always going on. So
basic.
like when because of that, because it's a lifelong thing, and it's like, so is it kind of miswording to call it then transitioning? If you're always in the state of transitioning, then is it just your state of being, or like
It's like okay, so like hormone wise, okay, so on a chemical level, you are always transitioning because like I said, like in a cis women, levels are up and down, stuff's
yeah,
always changing. They go through menopause, they get more testosterone, they need more estrogen. Like same process. Like if our T levels go up, then they increase our testosterone blockers, up our estrogen. If estrogen's too high, they have to bring us down because too much estrogen in anybody turns into testosterone.
okay,
So on a chemical level, we're always on hormones. Now after you have your bottom surgery, you don't have to take your testosterone blockers because all that's gone. You just have
yeah,
to stay a low dosage of the estrogen. Um, on a physical level, it just depends. It's a case by case because some people will look at themselves all the time and be like, "I'm not where I want to be. I'm going to go get this done. I'm going to get this
okay,
done. Get that done." So it's like you're always in a state of transitioning on some level. Physically, it stops. at a point for some people, but chemically for all of us, it's a lifelong thing.
Okay, makes sense. I just wanted to kind of piggyback
No,
off that because you
yeah,
that when you said that it caught my ear. Um, are you happy? Is
I'm
Sahara happy with where she is right now?
120% happy. Like I've come to like I mean, I have my good days and I have some of my bad days, but it just comes with the territory. Like we all get dysphoric at some time, so we just gotta fuck that shit up and go.
What is, and this has nothing to do with transition. This is just about you as a person in general. What's the best thing about Sahara? Day to
The
day life. What makes Sahara's life just
best
amazing?
thing,
Yes.
Sahara does. No, like I don't know, like my personality is like how I am now. This is how I am all the time. Like I'm like this with people I know. I'm like this with strangers. Like I talk to the people I do talk to, I talk to them like I know them.
Hmm.
So I'm like this all the time. Like I see people at work, I'm like, what's up? Like, what the fuck are you doing here? So it's just me. It's just in my person. I'm not like a mean person or,
I've
I
seen
don't,
you go off on a few people though. I've seen.
I'm not a mean person. I don't walk around like I got the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I literally just take it day by day. Like I wake up, it's a new day. I'm happy.
Good. Yeah. And that light shines through. It definitely does. And I think that regardless of anything else that you're going through, never let your light dim because it's radiant.
Yeah.
So don't let that
Yeah.
dim. Um, last question, last thing, and then if you want to say anything else or talk about anything else that I haven't mentioned, we can. But last question for me: what's one thing that you think cisgender people walking away from this conversation, going into the world, taking it with hopefully a new perspective? What's the one thing that you want them to kind of look at the trans community differently after this?
If I had to pick one thing, like I would just hope everyone would be I hope everyone walks away like just a little bit more understanding. Like because like I said, there's so many misconceptions, so many like negative images that in some cases that's all people know.
Mm,
So I just hope that, people are just more understanding, like just be more open to not saying you have to like, full fledged communicate with everyone trans, like be in their life and all that, but just be more, I don't want to use the word tolerant, but tolerant,
okay.
like just exist, like just coexist with everyone. And like I said, we're all here. We're all working towards the same crap, just two different lanes.
And I think, yeah, and we're all imperfect people
Yeah.
trying to figure it the fuck out. That's really all it boils down to.
Basically,
Is
like,
you can put whatever label on a person, whatever title on a person, but at the end of the day, we're all imperfect humans trying to navigate this thing towards life and avoid Trump. That's really all we're all doing.
that's all it is. Like, we're all on the road to success. Like, I'm trying to make some money. You trying to make some money. I'm trying to find a husband. Y'all trying to find husbands, wives. It's we're all just living in life.
Exactly. Well, that's it for me. Do you have anything else before we go?
I don't think so. I think we actually covered a lot. I think we
We
covered.
did. We covered a
Um,
lot. So I already know because I know my listeners. I have the best listeners in podcasting. There are going to be probably a lot of questions to come out of this to reinforce maybe something they heard, maybe something to learn, maybe just questions that popped up in their head. Would you come back for that?
of course.
All
Like
right.
I always like if there are specific questions or the questions. You see that southern twang? Like I
It comes and goes. Like it's funny because it comes when you say certain words. I'm like, oh, that's. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have to think about stuff to say. I'd be like questions. So like yeah, if it's like certain questions and or whatever. Like I'm down. I'm down to answer whatever. Talk to whoever.
That's what's up.
Open
What's
book.
Tell the people where they can follow you if they want to reach out to you, if you feel comfortable giving your social media and everything, and then we'll go ahead and go.
All right, cool. So my social media is, listen, just say that I don't know if it's simply or simple. I don't know what I was thinking, but Instagram is SIMPLEE period Sahara.
Fair enough.
Some people are like simple Sahara with an extra E, simply Sahara. I'm just like, whatever.
Whatever. All right, cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming again. Thank you for taking time out your day. Listeners, we out this bitch. Peace.
Oh, it's